Congressman Suha Sobinian of Virginia, who is in today's deposition, and Democratic Congresswoman Melanie Stansberry of New Mexico, who will be in tomorrow's deposition with former President. I think we have a statement that she put out tonight. Let's play it and I have something to say on the other side. Judy Woodruff, I want to commend Chairman Comer for raising a series of significant questions that I responded to about the nature of the investigation and the areas that I thought should be explored. So, I appreciated that. I want to see the truth come out. So that was a reassuring way to end a very long, repetitive deposition. Now, let me just say that same like a very gracious statement. Congresswoman Stansberry, a woman is being forced to testify about the crimes of men who are not being forced to testify. Help me understand what is going on here. Well, I think that is at the heart of so much of this trial going back to the early 2000s when not only did Jeffrey Epstein not get prosecuted by the federal government, but they were actually investigating young women and girls who he raped and trying to put them on the stand to discredit them. But fast forward, the only woman who has been prosecuted in this crime is his company conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. And one of the things that's very peculiar in this case, I went back to look at the unredacted files this week, is that the vast majority of co-conspirators that were investigated were the women who groomed and assisted in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. But none of the male perpetrators who committed crimes of rape and sexual abuse, including potentially the president, who is accused in the files, have been called to testify and to account for what happened. And obviously, this is a systemic representation of what happens in society. Blame the victims. You know, I want to stay on that point, Congressman, because Hillary Clinton in her written opening statement made that point to some degree. And I want to read it and then I have, like my friend, Simone, a thought that I want to share. Quote, you have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files. You have compelled me to testify fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation in order to distract from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answer. Congressman, both you and Congresswoman Stansberry have been accused of Trump derangement syndrome over the last number of years. But that pales, my friend. That pales in comparison to Republicans' Clinton derangement syndrome, which is over 35 years old. This story, going after Hillary Clinton, there's a room in a basement somewhere in which it's like elixirs. They just mix whatever we can to come after her when they know that she had nothing, no connection, all the evidence points in that direction. So the fact that she states this up front, the fact that, as was just noted, you have women are the ones WHO are being called to testify. Women are the ones WHO are trying to get answers. The men are sitting back going to hubbadoo, I don't know, right? What does that tell you about where this ultimately goes? Because at the end of the day, tomorrow they'll get Bill Clinton. What the Republicans are doing is they're laying down traps they don't even realize they're laying down because at some point the table turns here and when you're sitting there with subpoena power this is a very different conversation than the one we're having now. So if I'm Republicans, I'm like, you know what, let's get this ish out of the way and clean up on aisle 9 through 27 and get ready for the 28 elections. Because 26 is I think it's not done. I sat through those almost 7 hours today where they basically asked her talking about the same questions over and over again. Look at what Secretary Clinton just said. She said by the end of the entire day, they were asking we are trying her for advice on how to move the investigation forward. Why were we having her in the first place when there's so many names in the files and he said over and over again, I have never even met the guy. We have all these people WHO are doing business with him, associating with him, pictures with other victims next to them. Why was Hillary Clinton I think it backfired on them. It was really an embarrassment. I'm looking forward to seeing the transcript come out. She also said they were asking her questions about UFOs. And Pizzagate and things that had nothing to do with this. And so they just really fell flat today, and it was a total embarrassment. Congresswoman Stansberry, tomorrow the attention turns to former President Bill Clinton. And what is it you want to know from him? And do you think that tomorrow's deposition will in any way mirror today's? You know, it's hard to say. I think it was very obvious walking into the deposition today that Hillary Clinton was not a person of interest in the Epstein case and that this was politically motivated. On the other hand, we know that Bill Clinton was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's, though he claims that he was not. There's many statements that show that survivors claim that they witnessed him at Epstein's house and various private properties. He traveled to Africa with Jeffrey Epstein in the presence of survivors. And so we have some very serious questions of the former president about what he knew, why he continued to associate with Epstein and what he may have observed. But I want to make a distinction that there is no evidence of a crime being committed by him, whereas, by contrast, the President of the United States right now is accused by a credible witness for whom the FBI took sworn statements of rape of her as she was a minor and the DOJ has actively removed those files from their website and refused to release them. So this is a very different situation, but they are both very serious inquisitions that we're doing right now to investigate what happened. Our colleague Ali Vitali asked Chairman Comer this morning about the potential force Lutnick to testify. Congressman, take a listen to this. In the spirit of bipartisanship, would you then ask the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to testify? It seems like he has some information. That's very possible. Howard Lutnick, can we hear from him? The First Lady, can we hear from Melania Trump? She's in a lot of pictures with Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe there's some questions their owners. I think they're stupid. Help me understand, do they think we're stupid? I think what did they do? Because Donald Trump. Yeah. Go ahead, Congressman. Please, go. I think he was a business yeah. Howard Lutnick was doing business with him and he's lied about his association. Be a little bit of particular for Jeffrey Epstein, right? What a contrast compared to Hillary Clinton. Why is Hillary Clinton the secretary being in question? We want to testify before US because if you want to actually get to the answers of what's going on, you'll get to the answers of what's going on. You'll get to the real people no matter how rich and powerful they are, including in the administration. But Republicans in the committee keep blocking and tackling for them, but I think they're seeing that they are in a corner right now and they have nowhere to run at this point. Congressman Stansbury, just a moment ago in talking about Hillary and Bill Clinton, I know that your tone changed just slightly when referencing Bill Clinton in his interview tomorrow, because as you laid out would then go on to say, you know, there are photos of him. There's a friendship here. There are things there that raises the level of questioning or the bar that he's going to have to meet tomorrow in questioning by both Republicans and Democrats. Could Bill Clinton wind up having a Prince Andrew? Former Prince Andrew, as we recall infamously from his interview when asked, his answers just made it worse. You know, we'll see what the former president says, but I think that at this point, based on the evidence that is in the public domain, we know that Prince Andrew was directly accused by Virginia Giuffre Roberts of participating in sex acts with her while she was a minor, that she was trafficked with him. And he lied in an interview to the UK press. So there is not, as far as I have seen in the files, any known accusations against Clinton in the Epstein files, but I think there's a broader question about the culture that enabled Jeffrey Epstein to continue to operate and to continue to do what he was doing, and the rich and powerful people, including a former president and others who look the other way. And so I think it's important that we ask these questions. Congressman Supermany, I want to underline something, which is Hillary Clinton wanted to do this deposition in public. Comer refused. Now that you've actually sat through the deposition, do you think there would have been value to the public if this had been televised, if this had been public? I think it would have been tremendously valuable. And at one point when one of the members took that picture, she was trying to force the committee to allow the press to come inside and videotape the rest. I wish they would have been able to do that. They would have seen her run circles around I think it's a lot of people that are trying to ask her questions over and over again about where the answer was no. They tried to trap her and she clearly had no association with Jeffrey Epstein. So I think it would have been great to have this in public. If a witness is willing to come and testify in public we should allow them to do that. I think there's TREMITOUS value to the public and to the American people and to everyone including our committee and our investigation to have these in public. I guess a quick follow-up to that then, do you think Lauren Boebert there should be some ramifications for her? Should she be censured? Should she be barred? She's not from tomorrow's deposition. Well, I think she was able to come back today based on competition of my understanding. So we'll see it, but should she be able to decide? I mean, I think if people are repeat offenders, for instance, I think they, should be reprimanded in some way.